It's my favorite time of the year. Halloween is almost here.
Ugh, you and candy corn.
I love it.
I know you do.
I love it. I am Sheila Amato, and along with my wife, Kimberly, we'd like to welcome you to another haunting episode of the Forever Fangirls podcast.
Haunting? Really? You're going a little all out there.
It's Halloween.
This is Halloween. Anyway, so speaking of Halloween, we are going to be at FanFusionUK in London.
Woo!
And one of their esteemed guests, which we are ridiculously excited to meet, is Amelia Eve, who actually played Jamie the gardener in 2020's The Haunting of Bly Manor. It's you. It's me.
It's us. Oh. So, in honor of that incredible series on Netflix, we thought we'd re-air our review of the series The Haunting of Bly Manor. So sit back, relax, and don't let the ghosts bite when you listen to the episode.
Just make sure you have tissues, because it's you as me. It's last 5 minutes. Those last 5 minutes. Oh.
Yes.
I have a story. Well, it isn't really my story. It belongs to someone I knew. And it's not exactly short.
And neither is this episode. Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of the Forever Fangirls podcast, where we can discuss anything we fangirl about. I am Sheila Amato, and you can find me and my wife on Twitter at ForeverFanPod.
And I am Kimberly Amato, and you can also find us on our website, foreverfangirls.com, and our Instagram at ForeverFanPod.
I'm so glad that it's the same name.
Yeah,
but anyway,
you don't forget.
Yes. My brain. So we are your hosts, and we're glad you can join us. And as you just heard, we are actually going to be reviewing
The Haunting of Bly Manor.
Yes. So we're actually going to have like a very short intro now, because the meat of this episode is going to be quite long.
Grab tissues.
Really?
I'm just saying.
Really?
I'm just saying.
But anyway, before we get started with that, there is going to be a lot of spoilers, so we have to start our banter music now.
Do. No, it's different music.
Yeah, it is. Can you believe it's like October is almost over?
Yeah.
Well, we have a few days.
Yet.
But I'm like, wow, 2020 is almost coming to an end.
Don't jinx it.
This is true.
But your favorite holiday is coming up.
Yes, I love Halloween.
And what is Halloween without a good ghost story? What the hell was that?
It was a scary laugh. You know, like Dracula. I want to suck your blood. No. You want to be terrifying? You just like attach a little red balloon to a drain grate and I will run away from you. I did that today on our walk.
Yeah, no, I didn't appreciate that. Really. But are you done?
Yes, we are done.
With this?
Okay. So let's, now that our banter music is over.
Yay.
Seriously though, if you have not seen The Haunting of Bly Manor, be sure to pause us and watch that episode, the series first, because I think it's a really good series. And then come back and listen to us and see if you agree with what we're about to discuss.
And I have to mention that we actually binge watched this in 2 days, and it would have been one, because I think we got to episode 4 and I was like, okay, next. And you're like, I need to sleep. And so we didn't.
I had to work the next day.
Yeah. And we could have started it on a Friday and then we could have stayed up all night. And then Saturday you would have been able to sleep.
Yes, but we didn't.
But we could have.
You know what? Next time, when we watch The Haunting on Hill House or whatever that is.
Haunting of Hill House.
Okay. Haunting
really?
of
No, seriously.
Hill House?
Like I am putting you down now. You will watch that with me?
Yes.
Really?
I already said that earlier. Not in the recording.
Okay, no, but see this is proof.
Ah.
This is me on tape.
Yes.
This is not fake news.
Yes, we will add it. We will add it to the list.
Yes! You heard it here first. Technically, because she just whispered it a while ago. But anyway.
Now, go ahead and read. Oh, before you read the synopsis.
Yes.
I thought, really interestingly, that this happened in 1987, or it was set in 1987.
Okay.
It's the same year that Black Mirror San
Junipero.
Black Mirror San Junipero was set in. So I'm like, ooh, twice in a row.
It's not a coincidence, honey. It's just, it was a good year. The 80s, have you noticed there's a lot, and I know our banter's over, but have you noticed a lot of stuff is coming back from the 80s? Like a lot of TV series are being placed in the 80s.
No, my childhood is coming back.
And here's the thing. I really think it's simply because we are that age group now where they're like, oh crap, we've got to keep them happy.
Well, you know
we
what?
really need to throw them a bone.
I do not mind it.
Neither do I.
So anyway.
And as a quick side note, because we're mentioning the 80s, we lost Eddie Van Halen. And that was one of the best concerts I had ever seen in my whole life. And he will be horribly, horribly missed in music. So there you go. All right. But anyway, I'm going to now, I figured, it's like we're having a feels episode here. So here is the synopsis from IMDb because, my wife insists that I apparently read these things and not her. An au pair's tragic death. Oh, after her death.
It's written down for you.
Am I supposed? I was waiting for you to cut me off and say that I needed to do it in an accent or something. But anyway,
you're supposed to do it in an accent.
I what? What accent am I supposed to do it in?
Your British accent. What else? Do you want to do it in Australian? I mean,
mate, it's gonna work. God, that was horrible.
That was. So stick with the British one.
After an au pair's tragic death, Henry hires a young American nanny to care for his orphaned niece and nephew who reside at Bly Manor with Chef Owen, groundskeeper Jamie, and housekeeper Mrs. Gross.
So for our reviews, we usually do the good, the bad, the cute. But like I said, since this is like 9 episodes in the series, we thought we would do something similar to our review of Winona Earp and focus on the characters.
And their overreaching storylines.
Yes.
So we are going to dive right in with, I'd say, the most terrifying character in the entire series. And that would be Viola Willoughby, the Lady of the Lake.
Yeah. She was, at the very beginning, we don't know who she is, but I think it was episode 8 where we really got to know her backstory.
Yes.
And, she's a strong character, strong-willed. Very, I don't know. She was confident, when she was alive. But then, she turned cruel to me.
See, I can understand why, though, because she was a woman that wasn't, let's be honest, they even say at that time women were not allowed to hold land, women were not allowed to have money. So she did have to marry. She happened to fall in love with the person she married. And then she gets sick. And then she turns around and goes, I'm not dying. You are not taking me. And she fights and she survives for 5, I think they said 5 years.
Well, she survives a long time when she was supposed to.
But while she's surviving, her sister is systematically raising her child and stepping in to her life. And if you notice, it's like the sister had sort of been in the background anyway. Like the sister was almost jealous as well. So that anger, I can see it and I can understand it, because when someone comes in and is taking over your life and you physically are deteriorating and are struggling, because even towards the later scenes of the episode, she's struggling. She's coughing more. She can't catch her breath and she can't dance with her daughter. She can't dance with her husband. And you see it mentally and physically, she's deteriorating. I can understand that cruelty, because that anger of you're replacing me, you're living the life I should be living. Why is this happening to me?
But she didn't have to be that cruel to her sister. I mean, it's just.
Is it because she's cruel, or is it? I'm torn on it, because I've seen people when they're very, very sick and they take it out on the ones they love. It doesn't mean they're horrible or evil. It just means that they're so lost and they're so just buried in their pain that they can't see beyond it. Well, so I
also think that she's afraid to be abandoned, because she is because she has this disease, is being left behind.
Huh. That's an interesting take.
Well, I mean, that's why she was able to, she basically said when she was healthy, screw y'all, I'm going to still hold on to Bly Manor.
Yes.
Regardless of whether or not I have a husband. But, and then now as she is slowly dying, she's like, no, this disease is not going to take me. And really, it didn't. It was actually her sister who
had enough.
Had enough and killed her.
So speaking of the sister, let's just go right into Perdita Willoughby. I think I'm saying her name correctly.
I think so.
Anyway, she really, in my opinion, it seemed like she just kind of did follow the leader.
Oh yeah. She liked being part of Viola's life.
Yeah.
Right? And basking in the benefits of that. She didn't have to do the work. She was just riding her sister's coattails.
And I don't think she had, at least it didn't feel as if, like looking back, I don't think she had the wherewithal to do it. I think that Viola really did handle, even though her husband was very well to do, etc. I think she, with her strength of will and everything else, really did run the manor and kept things going and kept the money coming in. And I think her sister just knew how to spend it. And her sister just knew how to live in that lifestyle and wanted that lifestyle, but didn't understand what it took to keep it.
Right. Because she's, like I said, she was riding her sister's coattails. She didn't know how to run a household.
No. And I think she got, in a way, her just desserts because, the dresses and everything that were supposed to be for her niece, that were, all the jewels, everything that was being locked away. Viola's husband is keeping his word, which really, when you have nothing else, your word is your bond, and she just opens the chest and Viola sees her, and Viola is sitting there, and what they say, she wakes, she walks, she sleeps, she wakes, she walks, she sleeps.
Yeah.
And so she's living in this constant cycle, and the only thing that keeps her somewhat human is the fact that she's going to see
her daughter.
And then the door opens, and who does she see? Her sister. And her sister is holding up this gown of how beautiful it is and how stunning it is, and they could, sell these things or keep them, who knows? And Viola's like, I've had enough. You killed me. You did this to me. You put me in this trunk. I'm done.
Well, did her sister really put her in that trunk?
Her sister killed her.
I understand that.
So, however, whether it's her...
It was her willpower, I think. Viola's willpower.
Probably, but the point is, she's not in that trunk if her sister does not kill her.
Mm.
So, right there, that anger and all that cruelty that you see, that jealousy, the rage, everything else that had been building up from her sleeping, walking, whatever, has just been unleashed.
Yeah. And then add insult to injury when her husband and her daughter finally leave, they chuck the trunk into the lake, and that's why she is the Lady of the Lake.
Yeah. And superstition. I mean, you have tons of superstitions that I don't understand.
Yeah, well, it was just a very sad turn of events.
But it's very real, because the fact is, life throws you a curveball when you're expecting a fastball. And if you don't know how to swing at all different types of speeds, and anybody who doesn't understand baseball references, I'm sorry. But it's just one of those things where you're expecting one thing, you get another thing, and if you can't adapt and grow with it or change with it,
you'll be left behind.
Yeah. And let's be honest, we all have our own superstitions.
Mm-hmm.
So, and unfortunately, that leads us to someone who indirectly became a victim of the lake.
Yeah, well.
But not by any fault of her own.
Yeah, so our next character that we want to talk about is Rebecca Jessel.
Oh, God.
Right? So she was the first au pair.
Yes.
And
she was amazing with the children.
Yes, she did everything for them. She's ambitious,
yeah,
right? But she's like lower middle class, maybe middle class, trying to make a life for herself.
Yep.
Right? So
in the 80s, when, if anybody who take out what's going on in the world right now, in the 80s, really and truly, same-sex marriage did not exist. Same-sex couples were in hiding. And if you were a woman in any type of work environment, you really still, there was significant, struggle there.
Yes. I mean, that scene where she was going for the interview for the au pair, and there was a stain on her shirt. She covered it. She tried to cover it with her hair,
But they still saw it.
They still saw it.
And the thing is, they used it like on her, like it was, oh, you don't know how to take care of yourself. You have a stain on your shirt. You can't present yourself well. Like women were only there to be presented.
Right.
Which unfortunately still happened.
Right. But she was able to handle that interview rather well.
Yeah, her wit and her I felt that she could think on her feet very quickly.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Until,
well, you know, she really brought herself up by the bootstraps.
yes,
right?
she made a choice.
She made a choice. Her circumstances were not the greatest, but she was systematically and strategically trying to get to a better place.
Yes.
So, you know, this au pair job was a
Stopgap.
not a stopgap. It was actually a strategic
stepping stone.
A strategic stepping stone.
Okay.
So that she can get to where she wants to go, because the traditional path is just not open to her.
Yeah.
So.
And how did that get derailed?
Well, you know, she.
I
was blinded by
I'm gonna
love.
let you see. You know what? I have a problem with that, but we'll just go ahead and go into this character because I absolutely, unequivocally, emphatically despise this character.
We're not finished with.
No, we can just go right into it because the two of them together start to finish them.
You're blazing right ahead.
Oh, I'm blazing right ahead. Yeah.
So Peter, the devil with an angel's face.
Oh, he did not. Mm-mm.
Look, he is meant to be like the really good-looking character that she falls for, and doesn't see the fact that he has.
But you know what's
an
funny?
ulterior motive.
You know what's funny to me though is the way he was portrayed. He reminded me of a really bad car salesman from the moment he came on screen, and I didn't know what it was about him. I didn't know, but the actor was so good. Oliver Jackson-Cohen.
Mm-hmm.
He was so good that I didn't like him from the second he was on screen.
Well, yeah.
I mean, excellent acting in that regard, but you know,
because you could tell that he really, you know, it's not bad to want to be better. What is bad is when you want to win at all costs, no matter who you hurt or who you step on. That was the difference between Rebecca and him, in my opinion.
They felt relationship-wise like the yin and the yang. They were both in the same situation. They both had bad families, or I don't know if she had a bad family.
But they were both the help, right?
Yeah, they were both the help, but he had a horrible childhood. He had a horrible family. He had all this horrible, like, don't trust anybody. But, you know, he'd been, I think, in jail or something like that. But he had a bad history. Right?
Well, he, from what I gathered, his father abused him physically, and his mother abused him emotionally
and mentally. Yes.
So, yeah, that will mess with any kid.
Yeah. No, I'm not negating his upbringing made him the man he became, but you know what? I look at Rebecca and I'm like, you know, you still made a choice. At a certain point in your life, you make a choice, and his choice was, I'm going to steal from my boss. I'm going to take control, and we're going to run away.
Right. I mean, yes. So he made the choice to go a certain path. Rebecca made a choice to go a different path.
Yep.
Unfortunately, their paths crossed.
But what broke me about Rebecca also is that she gave up her integrity, in a sense, to go with him without...
I don't think she gave up her integrity.
But it felt out of character.
Okay, so I can have a slight... Okay, so an example from my own past. I had always wanted to go to an Ivy League school.
Yes.
When I was in high school, that was my dream. And I was dating a guy back then who that really didn't want... That was not his path, right? He wanted to go to college, but he didn't want to go anywhere out of state. And at the time I was in Kentucky. So, you know, I actually changed my goals because I was with him. So that's why I understand Rebecca's plight.
I just don't agree with it.
The point is, right, I understand why she wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt because she did love him. And maybe in his own way, she loved her.
She loved her.
Sorry. He loved her.
Uh-huh.
But again, what is that line in the movie? The possession.
There's a fine line between love and possession.
Right.
Well, let's just agree to disagree on this one.
Okay.
Because I look at him as perpetuating the abusive relationship and destroying her.
No, I agree with that.
And because she, I guess, had not been accustomed to being loved because of her childhood and her fighting and her everything she's been through, that she just grabs the first thing, possibly. I don't know. I just, for what he did to her when he's killed by the Lady of the Lake, and then, he turns around and tells her.
He tricks her.
He tricks her, but he says, we're going to get out together. We're going to flee together. You just have to let me in. And then they try to get across the border, and she flies over the border and he's stuck behind.
Right.
And then he says, you know what? I figured it out. I figured out a way. You just have to say the 3 phrases and then we'll figure it out. And then he drowns her, and she's in the pocket in her mind in a bedroom in her favorite memory of them. And water starts coming in and she's like, what?
Yeah, she's blindsided.
And that to me is, it's just, I hate him so much. I hate that character so much.
And I don't like that character either. And unfortunately, by the time she realized that he had betrayed her, it was too late.
Well, you can't, I believe you can't fight that back. Like when you let the spirit in at that level, when you invite them into you, my understanding of the series is that you're only allowed out when they let you out, basically.
Yeah, well, I'm
just gonna beg that we move on to the next character, because I truly, 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 truly despised him.
Sure.
So Henry Wingrave.
You said you truly despised
him, Peter.
Peter. Okay.
See, now you've got me screwing up all my stuff.
I just want to make sure that we're talking
I did not like
here.
Peter.
Okay.
And his learning the key to figure out everybody. Like, ugh, I don't like him.
All right. Henry Wingrave, he is haunted by the devil inside. Devil inside. Devil inside. Every single one of us, the devil inside.
All right. Yes. Okay. He basically had an affair with his sister-in-law.
Yes. Dominique. Dominique is his brother, and Charlotte is his brother's wife, and they had a daughter, Flora. But the thing about this character is, I didn't understand his deal, right? When we first see him, he's just drinking all the time, and I'm like, oh, great, he's an alcoholic.
Yep.
He's a lawyer. He's a functioning alcoholic. He's just doing his thing because he doesn't like his life or whatever. But later on, as his story unfolds, it's because he's trying to forget
that he betrayed his brother, that his brother then basically, I think they worked together. I don't know if they were lawyers.
Yeah, they had the practice together.
And he's, the brother Dominique splits, decides to work it out with his wife. I mean, his brother literally stands there and goes, Flora's mine. You will never see her. When she has a cough, I will take care of her. Like, destroys Henry in the way that Henry destroyed him.
Yeah.
And then to find out that the reason they were going on this trip is because they were going away to work on their marriage.
Right.
And they die there.
Yeah.
And he just blames himself.
Right. And that was the night that his devil inside.
Oh my God, stop.
Sorry.
Stop.
Well, I have to do something because that devil that they portrayed was creepy.
Yeah.
Very creepy.
Yeah, and I think that's why I can follow his line a little better, because when we find out that he's the one calling Bly Manor, just to hope and pray that Flora answers the phone so we could hear her voice. We know that that's where Flora got her dollhouse. All of these things, when you finally see all the tendrils of his story, he's like that tragedy,
Yeah.
He made bad decisions and he paid for it dearly.
Yeah, because when we both picked up on the fact that he is having an affair with Charlotte.
Yeah. Pretty quickly.
Yeah. So, the thing that hit me was like, man, there are so many other people. Why would you want to have an affair with your brother's wife? But, you fall in love with someone and you can't control that. So I guess it is what it is.
You have to figure it's also like he's going to suffer too, because he doesn't get to really know anything about Flora until they go away and his brother and Charlotte go away and die. But then he doesn't even go to Bly Manor. Like he's afraid of going there.
Well, he was banished. Banished.
But see, the thing is, he was honoring that banishment, even though, he doesn't have to anymore. He was punishing himself for it. And it isn't until he actually just gets a bad gut feeling, rushes to Bly Manor, that the Lady of the Lake almost kills him.
Right.
And it's like, okay, he has to, at that point, since he's dead, I believe he's a ghost for a little bit.
For a little bit, until Owen revives
But he
him.
has to make that choice. Do you go back or do you stay?
Mm-hmm.
And he made a choice to change and be better. He wanted to go back, and Owen revives him. And I do think there was that choice there.
Yeah.
At least that's the impression I got. So
that he wants to do better.
Yeah, and that he had to make a choice, and he made one.
Yeah.
And, speaking of Owen,
I think he's my favorite character, aside from, the two leads. But he's so adorable.
You just like it because he cooked.
Of course. Food.
Yeah,
I'm a foodie.
I know you keep saying you're a foodie, dear.
Well, I'm just making sure that you know.
What I loved about him was the openness to love. He's home, he's taking care of his mother. His mother has dementia. And all of that is very hard. Taking care of your mother, who brought you into this world, who you love dearly, is extremely hard. And to have them forget you is, I can't even fathom that pain. So,
or the relief after she dies.
But that guilt of the relief as well.
Yeah, because it was what was that line that he said? Something about, she was so small in the end, but such a heavy burden.
Yeah.
And it's
true.
It is.
I think back to when my grandmother was very, very ill, and I love my grandmother dearly, and I would trade a year or two off my life for 5 minutes with her now. And towards the end, it was like she had become a shell of who she was.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're talking a very boisterous woman who she died barely before 95. And it was just, you could see she wasn't herself. She didn't want anymore.
Right.
And that was just very, very hard. And it was such a burden on my mother. And it was a burden she willingly took, like Owen, but it hurts your heart.
Of course. It takes a toll. Yeah.
It just emotionally really drains you in a way. And you could see it in the way he portrayed the character, that he was a certain way. He was rushing home to his mom. And then when she passed, all of a sudden he was like, oh. And he was trying to find a purpose because he came back from Paris.
Yeah. He leaving a career, granted, he was a sous chef in Paris.
But he still left a career that had a ladder.
Right. And he wanted to, and that's how he got to Bly Manor, so that he can hone his skills as a chef there. So that he can be close to his mom and can go whenever, she needed him. And that to me was such a great sacrifice. And it's heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking, but he also somewhat said it himself. No one ever leaves Bly.
Well, that was a double entendre.
Very much so. But you always, in life, come back to a certain point of it at some point in your life.
Mm.
You don't anticipate it, but you might end up coming back home to take care of a parent. Maybe you come back to a different area to take care of your child. There's at some point you do go backwards, and you don't want to, you don't mean to, but you just have to.
From a sense of duty?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And You know, and also some people just go back home because they miss that mental connection, that calm feeling maybe where they used to live, where they have these, because let's be honest, as you age, your memories as a child go through rose-colored glasses. So you might go backwards, and it's a very psychological thing. And I'm going to shut up because I really shouldn't go that far on a tangent. But I found that to be almost like a triple thing. You know, one, oh, no one ever leaves Bly Manor because something always pulls you back, mainly family, or the Lady of the Lake keeps your soul there, or you come home because you feel safe here. There's a mental connection to that place. So, yes.
Yeah. Well, for me, the fact that he is a chef, he is feeding everybody, so he's nourishing everybody. So it's like he is the glue that keeps everybody there.
He keeps
together.
Their physicality healthy. And I know he does leave Bly.
Yeah.
What's the restaurant he opens?
The Batter Place. That's the other
The Batter Place.
Yes. That's the other thing that I love about him. His dad jokes. It's so cute. The Batter Place.
But he opens it and he honors Mrs. Gross by having her picture prominently displayed in the restaurant. But the reason I bring that up is because he nourishes their physical. He keeps them well fed. He keeps them healthy. But Mrs. Gross, to me, was the mental side. Like she would sit and have tea with someone. She sat with Jamie in the garden and going, how do you feel? You know, the kids are cleaning, the kids are doing gardening. And she's like, well, I could kind of get used to it. You know, it's a little less work. It's nice to take a break. And Mrs. Gross seemed to be that person everybody talked to and everybody reached out to. Whereas Owen was the one who he fed everyone. He made sure everybody was healthy and had enough energy to run around. And that's why I think they would have been an amazing couple. And it broke my heart that they couldn't be. So, you know, as far as Mrs. Gross, episode 5.
Yeah. So that was day 2 of our binge.
Yes. I'm glad we didn't end on that episode after watching it, because I think you would have wanted to watch 6 right away.
Yeah, because I'd be like, what is going on here?
But I've told you from, I think, maybe whenever the first episode was, maybe 2, when she saw the crack in the wall, and then Jamie goes to fix the crack and it's not there. And I said, she is dead.
Yeah, and I kept saying, no, she can't be dead.
And everybody
can see her.
She's barely, like, you don't really see her drinking. Even if she tips it back, it's like, I don't think she's drinking.
Right.
And even when they were around the fire pit and she's, you know, leaning the wine back, everybody else is drunk and she doesn't seem to be. There were too many instances where I was like, she's dead. And I kept trying to wrap my brain around it, like, no, but she's such a great character. Oh my God.
I know. And that's why I couldn't wrap my brain around it, right? Because she was interacting with everybody else. There's no way that she could be dead. I mean, you know, but I guess that, you know, she is haunting Bly Manor because
But is she haunting Bly Manor, or
is she's a ghost?
But yes, but what I'm expressing is Viola used her willpower, and basically she was so strong and so powerful that she kept all of the ghosts there with her, right?
Yeah.
Was Hannah, Mrs. Gross, strong enough and strong-willed enough that literally she dreamed herself, like Peter said, in Miles's body, because that little beep, 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 beep killed her.
Mm-hmm.
God, Peter was so evil. And literally he said, you literally dreamed yourself a new outfit every day.
Yes, because for her, right, her strength is in structure and repetition.
Yes.
Right? So she had her whole life wrapped around Bly Manor and the kids.
Yeah.
So
because her husband decided to run off with another.
Yeah. Like, really? So, you know, she was able to continue that on, and
because, in my opinion, because she was so mentally, her fortitude was just, she was just such a strong woman. Mm-hmm. She literally overcame the man she loved leaving her after building a career for herself, building a life for herself. She stays. Charlotte says, hey, stay at Bly Manor. So she stays. She makes it her home, takes care of these kids.
She knows Bly Manor in and out.
She knows all the secret passages, knows all the stories. She cares about the ground. She cares about everybody there. this is her family.
Yeah.
And then she does love Owen, loves him so much. But, you know, like she even has a note here, once bitten, twice shy.
Once bitten, twice shy, babe.
That makes sense. Like she's so strong and so just, she's the other side of the glue.
Yeah.
You know, Owen keeps you physically there. She keeps everything else and the mental there. And I think that knowing that she's gone, it breaks Owen too. And it oh God,
Yeah.
you were crying your eyes out.
I was, because, you know, she finally accepts, you know what? Yes, I want to go to Paris. You know, she was so scared to leave the structure, right? And that's one of the things that I could like really relate to her, because I live structure, right? I had to go to work. I had to do certain things a certain way throughout the week. And so I could see, you know, that piece of me in her. And then to leave all of that structure because someone says, let's go on an adventure. You know, it's scary. It's a scary prospect. You already have your structure, your schedule. Everything else is set. You know exactly what's going to happen. And then you introduce something new. You don't know what's going to happen. And so when she finally says, yes, I'm ready to take that leap into the unknown, she can't.
The unknown.
Okay, we are going to get sued. Stop it.
All right, well, I'm just going to say that her death broke my heart. And I'm going to go right into the person whose body killed her, Miles.
Yeah. Let's see, just another point for Mrs. Gross, though. You know, whenever, I know we're going to talk about Miles being possessed by Peter, but she always believed that Miles was not, that something else was maybe.
She had an intuitive connection where she could see that he wasn't being who he was.
Right.
And that is what led to her death.
Right. Because she still thinks that, you know, Miles is a good kid.
Mm-hmm.
Deep down he is. He's just being possessed by Peter.
An evil, dark soul of a character.
Yeah.
So. But speaking of Miles, I mean, he seemed to be like in the movies, like horror films, Scream specifically, there was always somebody that was like, here's the rules of the horror film type thing. He seemed to be that individual, that character that told you the rules of the ghosts and what was going on.
Especially in boarding school when he was asking, do you have to give permission for the ghost to inhibit you?
Yeah.
And you know, they were talking about passages about, you know, the evil spirit being cast out by Jesus or whatever. Mm-hmm. I just thought that was an odd scene. And then when we saw later episodes, I'm like, oh, that was the point of that scene. Because I thought it was out of place when I first saw it. I don't know about you.
Yeah. I was kind of like, okay, here's this creepy kid. I mean, I just kept telling you, these kids are creepy. These kids are so creepy.
They are, but it turns out they really were trying to protect the people around them.
Yeah, I mean, he was trying to protect his sister. Mm-hmm. And seeing her note when the classmate who he had beat up opens the note and says, come home.
Yeah.
And he kept trying to come home and they wouldn't let him. He gets into a fight. Oh, you know, that one priest, I have faith in you.
Right.
You know, you can stay. I can help you. I don't know what's going on. You've been in a tough situation.
Right.
He gets to that priest by doing exactly what, you know, Peter indirectly, I don't know if it was before or after this, says, which is,
you got to find the key.
You find the key to that person to break them, basically,
right.
To let them in.
Well, in the timeline that we see it, right, Miles actually says, yeah, I'm trying to find the key. I'm just trying to find your key.
So it has to be before.
It was before, but we saw that later.
All right. Well, either way you go, you know, Miles was really, he's a victim the whole time through. Yeah. Which is sad.
Because he also looked up to Peter, right? And again, Miles did not want to think that Peter was a bad guy, even though Peter was making him do bad things.
But also as a young boy, his father's gone.
Yeah.
His uncle doesn't come by anymore. Who comes by all the time? You have Owen, who's trying to teach him to be a better person and be that, you know, father figure. Peter was the one going, this is how you do things, kid. And showing him what, for better or for worse, I think much worse. But, you know, so, I mean, I can't kind of blame him. And then, you know, when he's evil, he takes on Peter's evil traits like smoking.
Yeah. That was just very odd to see, but it was like, oh, God.
Oh, and then he, you know, says, you know, Hannah, I can't believe you're doing this, blah, 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 and then pushes her down the well.
Yeah. And then crack.
Yeah, the crack sound was like, oh.
Yeah. Broken neck.
And broken celery, whatever they use for sound effects.
Ay.
But moving on to his sister Flora.
Yeah.
She sees all of the ghosts. In fact, her dollhouse is where we had met a young boy ghost who no longer had a face, who basically
was moving
all the dolls around. So you would always know where the ghosts were, where the people were in the house. And the Lady of the Lake was always under the dresser, except that one time freaked everybody out, was in the middle of the room sitting up.
Right. And I actually did not understand the significance of that until much later. And I'm like, oh my dear God.
Yeah, then it made sense. And again, I think it was one of the later episodes where I talk about Viola, because Viola, the Lady of the Lake, picked up the little boy who was in her bed and drowned him.
Yeah. I'm like, oh my God, she doesn't even remember why she goes to the bedroom.
Yep, she doesn't know.
That was the,
Yeah. But, you know, she creates all these talismans because I think it was her mother, Charlotte, who told her, oh, do you know what this is? It's a talisman and it keeps you safe.
Yeah.
So that's why, you know, she put them everywhere.
Yeah. She was trying to protect the inhabitants of Bly Manor from the Lady of the Lake.
Out of every character, I think she was the consummate innocence.
Yeah. Although, again, it was very creepy until we understood what she was trying to do.
Yeah, but still, she's extremely innocent in what's going on. She's extremely innocent into how things go. She's just trying to keep people safe.
Yeah.
So, and I did love it when she's in the attic and they're playing like hide and seek or whatever, and she looks back at the ghost and just goes, shh.
Yeah. It was like, because the ghost was trying to sing the song of the music box.
Yeah, I was laughing because you and I are like, oh my God, there's a ghost, there's a ghost, there's a ghost. And then she just turns around and goes, shh. We're like, oh, wait, she sees him? She knows?
Yeah. And
like,
she knows that it's a benign ghost. It's not going to hurt you.
I was like, okay, so Flora basically runs this house. I get it.
Right.
And then, you know, we meet the Lady of the Lake and I'm like, oh, no, she does not run this house. Okay. But, you know, Flora really, there's really not much to talk about for her. Her story arc was pretty simple and it's pretty straightforward.
Until she is the person who gets married.
We find out later she is the individual getting married. Jamie.
And the storyteller.
Yes. Well, Jamie is the storyteller, not and the storyteller. Jamie is the storyteller.
Well, that's what I meant.
Well, she's technically the storyteller, narrator, whatever. But, you know, she also had a tough childhood. But
yeah,
unlike Peter...
that was very hard for me to follow, by the way. The thick Irish accent. It's like, wait, what? What's going on? But I finally got it.
You know, but what also kind of supports what I was saying earlier is that, you know, with choices is she, like Rebecca, had difficulty. And they made different choices.
Yes.
And they used what they could. I don't say this is easy, and I don't say you can always do this. Because let's be honest, the world will shove stuff in front of you that can sometimes make it absolutely unequivocally impossible to move forward. And I get that.
Yeah.
But we're talking about a fictional world. And in this fictional world, these people managed to make different choices that didn't involve hurting other people.
Well, what Jamie did was basically to close herself off from...
They hurt themselves.
She hurt herself. That was my point, that she closed herself off from trying to have that deep connection with someone because it hurt too much. And, you know, not until Danny, but we're not there yet. So.
No, but I liked this character a great deal. And I appreciated her story because here's somebody who she closes herself off, but she closes herself off and she says she loves flowers. She gets into flowers. And why? Why does she get into gardening? Because things can grow.
She can nurture them.
And she can nurture it. They can grow and they become beautiful. And even the moonflower, which she says, like, if you're lucky, blooms once.
Yeah.
And you work so hard and it blooms once.
Yeah.
And then next year, you've got to do it again and again and again. And she says it's worth it because there are some things in life that are hard, but they're worth it.
They're worth the pain.
Yeah. And for her, she sits down and she says, what I'm saying, Poppins, is you're worth it.
Yeah. I was like, oh.
And then, we realize that she's, the storyteller / narrator, and she's telling this story to keep Danny's memory alive because the ghosts get forgotten.
Right.
And, yes, water will wash away their face, but as people forget who they are, and as I think it's even Peter who says, we need to leave because people will forget who we are, and you don't want to become like those other ghosts.
Right.
We can still be alive if people know who we are, but as people forget, and this is where my adage comes in, or my old thought process. I don't know what you want to call it. But the idea that, all of these ghosts are sands on a beach. As we're alive, we're all sands on a beach.
Grains of sand. Yes.
Yes. All right. Fine. I'm punchy. But we're all grains of sand on a beach. And as more people are born behind us, they add more layers of sand behind us. Right. But we become closer and closer and closer to the water, just land erosion. Right. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the ocean might take you out and shove you back on the beach somewhere else with a different family or a different whatever. But eventually, all of us wash out and we all sink to the very, very bottom of the ocean, to the deepest, darkest space, where we are completely and utterly forgotten. That's just life. Even in history books, we learn about George Washington. We learn, about all of the presidents. But I don't know them as people.
No.
I don't even know if their portraits are accurate. I mean, I think they are. But you get my point.
Yeah.
We learn history, but we don't know these people. So the idiosyncrasies are gone. Everything about you is gone. Eventually the individual you are is completely forgotten. And that is what they're afraid of. So I love that she's telling the story because she's keeping the memory of Danny alive.
Yeah.
That's it? Just yeah. And then, we have her in her hotel room looking at pools of water in the sink and in the bathtub. We started the episode with her waking up in the morning, the day of the party.
Yes. And I didn't understand why the hotel room door was open. It's like,
did housekeeping come? We didn't know.
Well, I'm like, shouldn't you close that door? What if someone came in?
No,
that was the point.
I think they were 2 different days because I think it was
they had
party
to,
and then the wedding happened the next day and then it was that evening. Some people actually online were like, no, it's the same day. No, I don't think so. I think it's 2 separate days. It's the day of the party.
Oh, well, I always thought that it was 2 different days.
Yeah, so because of that, why. I have a crazy theory, but I'm not going to discuss that theory until later. So moving on to, I'm going to say Jamie's wife. Even though legally they couldn't get married, they were civilly committed because I think they were in Vermont with the snow.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, Danny. So, she is running away from her past.
Yes.
She is carrying a lot of baggage, a lot of guilt. And she kept seeing this ghost in the mirror that had
creeped me out when I first saw it. You and I both jumped. We're like, what the hell is that?
Yes. And she jumps every time she sees it.
Yeah.
And then, we find out, okay, it was her fiance, her childhood sweetheart, that everybody said, okay, the 2 of them are just so close that they are eventually going to get married.
Yeah.
And then, she loves him, but not in that way. She doesn't love him romantically enough to marry him.
Yeah.
And so then, she's trying to break it off. She tries. She just can't until the very end when it's just, it's like, I think a few days before the wedding or a week before the wedding or something. And then he steps out of the car and then gets killed.
By, I think it was like a tractor trailer. Of some kind.
A big truck.
Whatever it is, it reflected in his glasses.
And
that's why the glasses.
Yes.
I felt horrible because you and I have both been there. We're both bisexual. We've been in a relationship with men. Mm-hmm. And it's very hard when you're with somebody and then you love them, but you're not meant to be with them.
Yeah.
And I've never felt that way with you. Obviously, I married you. But I felt so much for her because in the 80s,
she wanted to be that person
yeah,
that everybody...
she tried.
Yes.
And she says, I've tried, and I just can't do it. And then the guilt she feels of being free.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same guilt that Owen felt, just, you know, obviously
A different
slightly
way.
different.
Yep.
But you feel guilt when you're free and you don't have to tell anybody. You can keep your secret.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's why she ran away to London.
Oh, well, you know, she was on the phone with her mother going, no, I did not run away. I got a job.
Well,
But
well,
yes.
she was saying that she wanted to make a difference, right? And so that was being an au pair would help her make a difference.
Yes, because she
into
was a
children's
teacher,
life.
I believe. And she
was.
said, you know, it was just all these kids going screaming crazy. And, you know, from a family of teachers, we understand classrooms are very hard to teach so many children, to give them the attention they need. And in Danny's case, she said, you know, I can't make a difference in all of their lives, but if you give me two I can make a difference in.
Right. And so she actually took that to heart. And, you know, in that episode, that last episode, episode 9, when she actually saves Flora from the Lady of the Lake.
She saved both of those children. She changed their lives.
She changed their lives. And, you know, ironically enough, she changed everybody else's life after that, because by taking in the Lady of the Lake into her and then dying in the lake before the Lady of the Lake took over her, no one else was taken by the lake.
And she indirectly freed every single spirit that was there.
Right.
So there was nothing holding people there and they could move on.
Yeah. There's no longer that gravity. I don't think we talked about that in Viola's thing, but
well, yes, no, we did. We said her strong will pulled, you know, the spirits in. That's why nobody ever leaves Bly. For me, the willingness for her to also come out of her shell and love Jamie fully and completely, and not allowing her guilt or this darkness inside her to stop her from feeling love. And figuratively, that's just beautiful.
Yeah.
And you mentioned something about her eye color, which surprised me.
Well, I noticed it with Miles. Whenever I didn't notice it right away, but when in one of the sequences when Peter actually took over Miles's body, he had 2 different colored eyes. His natural eye color was blue, and then one was a brownish red. And once Danny took Viola into her body, then one of her blue eyes became red. So I'm like, oh, damn.
So she takes in Viola, and then her and Jamie go to America, and they end up having a floral shop. And, you know, they have, I think it's when she gets her clatter ring, and she proposes because it's the first time she sees Viola in her reflection. So she knows time is of the essence, basically, and their time is running out. And so she says, you know, we can get married and we can wear the rings. I'll know. Nobody else has to know. Who cares? And then they get civilly committed. And, you know, actually, when she came in with that piece of paper saying, you know, she goes, I'll marry you again when I can. I was like, oh. And then you see the water. Yeah. And it's thought, no.
Yes, because I thought that Danny drowned herself. And I'm like, no, don't do it. But yeah, the fact that, you know, she did make a choice. Again, she made a choice to take it day by day, to have a life with Danny. And I thought that was just the most beautiful thing. You know, it's a metaphor for life, right? We don't know how long we have. So we might as well make the best of what we have now.
Yeah, which is a great segue into our final thoughts. You know, no matter what, I would definitely say that this is an intense series.
Oh, yeah. I kept the Kleenex box near me.
You need a Kleenex now.
Yes, well.
I'm going to throw out a very crazy theory. And hear me out before you say something.
I always hear you out.
Really? You just, really?
Yes.
Okay, Jamie.
Mm-hmm.
We see him in the beginning of the season, whatever. And she's draining all the water because she had just woken up and she's going to do the event for the day.
Mm-hmm.
And then we see her again, and she's at the dinner table, and they're talking, and they go through the evening, and then she says, we're going to tell you the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Goes through the whole story. During the series, I keep saying that, we learn that Rebecca and Peter cannot touch one another until Rebecca is dead. That is just the lore we're told. They cannot be together until she is dead with him. Correct.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
At the end of the series, the last few seconds or minute of the episode, we see her filling the sink, filling the tub, waiting, and then she opens the door and she's breathing. And when she's breathing, you actually watch, and I think it's her right shoulder, because if you're sitting in the chair, it'd be your right shoulder, is going up and down as she breathes. And then all of a sudden, her mouth drops open and her shoulder stops moving. And then you pan to behind her, and her hair looks a tinge lighter, and there's a hand on her shoulder.
Tinge darker, you mean?
Yes, it's not as gray.
Yeah.
And maybe that could just be lighting. But then you see a hand on her shoulder. I believe Danny comes back to take Jamie because Jamie is dead, and they are going to be in eternity at Bly Manor together. That is my theory, and I'm sticking to it because it makes me happy to know that in the afterlife they are together.
So that's your final thought?
That's my theory of my final. Well, that's my crazy theory I wanted to throw out there in my final thought. But what do you think of my theory?
I actually thought that she was just sleeping, because sometimes when you sleep and go into a deep sleep, that you barely register that you're breathing, but you are. And because Danny, released all of the souls in Bly Manor, she could go wherever she wanted to. So I had thought when we first saw that, okay, she's just watching over her. Wherever she was.
But she even says in her story that the au pair is destined for the rest of her life, for the rest of her existence, to wake, to walk, to sleep. And the water will fade away, her memories will fade away, but she'll wake, she'll walk, she'll sleep, just like the Lady of the Lake.
I don't remember that.
So for me, my head started putting all these pieces together, and you know me when I start thinking of it, and now I can't unsee it and I can't unthink it, and it's driving me crazy. So I'm just going to sit there and go, yes, they are happy together in Bly Manor in the afterlife, living their good lives.
I actually like that theory.
So outside of that, please let me know what you think of my theory. But outside of that, this series for me was even more terrifying than Hill House. And Hill House is really scary.
Okay.
But this was more terrifying to me because it is about loss. It is about losing the one you love. It is about giving yourself over to things you cannot control and being open and being vulnerable and risking being alone and risking being forgotten and risking everything that you can protect yourself from the pain of. And throwing it out there and saying, love is worth it. Life is worth it. Living is worth it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like I said, eventually, no matter what we do, no matter how much we protect ourselves, no matter how much we fight, we are forgotten. And that actually is more significantly scary than anything else, is to lose you. To lose the other half of my soul, to lose the love of my life, or to forget you. If I ever, God forbid, get sick or have something significant where my memory is gone and I don't know who you are. The idea of losing oneself so that you don't know who you are, you don't know where you're going, you don't know anything. I mean, they bring up dementia in this thing. They say that everybody is forgotten. The theme of forgetting is very prominent in this entire season. And it scares the living daylights out of me. And I know that sounds so feeble, but it really, really does.
Well, it is scary, but the other side of this coin, if you will, and this is my final thoughts, is that they can be the best times of your life too. Right?
Yeah.
If you are willing to accept the risks, the reward might be even greater, right? So, yes, there is loss. but there's also love. There's also the memories. There's also the wonderfulness of sharing a life together, right? This whole series actually brought, and I don't know if I ever told you this, but there was, when I first came to New York, the first painting thing that I ever bought, a replica,
you didn't have
of
any
course.
paintings in.
It was a replica of Salvador Dali's.
Oh, the poster.
Yes.
Okay.
It's
I'm like, you never had a replica painting. I would have noticed a
Sorry.
painting.
So it was the poster of Salvador Dali's oil painting, The Persistence of Memory, right? I never really studied art, but that painting to me always caught my attention because, you will always have the memory of something, but the passage of time will always blur the details around it. You'll always still have that memory, that feeling of what it was, but you'll just forget the details. And so this whole series to me is just like that. The memories are what are the most important thing, even though the details somewhat get blurred by the passage of time, right? The painting might not mean that at all, but that's just how I interpret it.
Well, art is meant to be interpreted.
And that's how I interpret the whole thing with the storylines here. The experiences, especially shared with you, are priceless. And even though the details of where we've gone or who we were with or whatever, even though those details fade, the feeling and the memories of how I felt with you will never fade. So, that being said, if you do forget how we were, that's why you're going to have to write our life story so that I can read it to you and then bring you back to me, like the Notebook.
So you're saying we're both going to die in our sleep holding each other?
Yes.
Okay, good.
That's how
just
we're
making
going
sure
out.
we're on the same page because, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So, sorry we were getting a little heavy there, folks. But
Like we haven't been heavy the whole episode.
You called it Friday Feels or whatever.
It's Friday. It's not Friday. It's Wednesday.
Oh, oops.
Friday Feels is an EMBC thing.
Oh, okay. So Wednesday.
It's just a very Wednesday weeping. There you go. Wednesday weeping.
So
or
anyway,
weeping Wednesdays,
right? Anyway, okay. So rating.
Yes.
This episode. This is the first time we're going to do this.
We've decided, somebody actually recommended that we add some type of rating system in a correspondence test. So we are adding it at the end of this very long episode.
Right. So I think that we settled on, 1 to 5 stars, where 1 is, oh goodness, no, not again. And 5 is perfectly splendid.
And the rating is... We happen to agree this time. It is a 5.
Yes, it's 5.
Simply because, the writing is really excellent. The acting, in my humble opinion, is excellent. I think the interpersonal relationships are excellent. I think if you take out all the relationships, even if you don't want to look at them or understand like the major love stories, you can actually still find something in this season that will really keep you attentive and enjoy.
Well, for me, the interpersonal relationships is actually why I gave it 5 stars, because I thought that the development of the characters within those relationships was really, really outstanding.
So there you have it. That is our first rating in this very, very long review today.
Yes. So, what do you guys think of The Haunting of Bly Manor? Are there any points that we missed in our very long review or things that you wanted to hear more of? Head over to our Twitter account at ForeverFanPod and let us have a discussion there.
So we are definitely going to be discussing The Haunting of Hill House sometime down the line because we're going to have to compare the two. Mm-hmm. And I also would really love to know what you thought of my theory. If you have theories of your own about Danny and Jamie, why the hand was on the shoulder, any ghosts or anything, we would really love to hear that. And truthfully, thank you all so much for tuning into this episode. We know it's been an abnormally long one for us.
Yes.
But we appreciate it. I know it's a long part of your day, not the small part of your day. If you haven't already, though, please hit subscribe. And if you do have a moment, just leave us a review or send us a comment of what you'd love to hear more of, like my wife said, because we do listen, we do check our emails, and we have been changing the podcast as you've suggested things that we can incorporate. So we really appreciate you taking the time to reach out.
Yes. So thank you again. In the meantime, stay safe, be kind, and remember, we all have made mistakes in our lives, but if we nurture our relationships, life blooms into a series of memories that lasts a lifetime. And as Jamie put it, one day at a time is what we've got.
And as Danny put it, it's you, it's me,
it's us.